training makes you worse. Without the adequate recovery, you're getting less fit. You're causing your body damage. That's the whole purpose of training. We're trying to force adaptation. Motivation runs out. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. You want to get the most amount of volume that you can that is realistically attainable based on your lifestyle. And I find that with a lot of athletes that I look after, I'm very, very often telling them all to slow down and do less.
You're saying all the things that nobody wants to do.
Exactly.
It's like nobody ever wants to do that. Welcome to Scribe Cycling. I'm Alan Graham, and today I have the honour of sitting down with Matty Teggart, a former professional cyclist and elite endurance coach.
Hi Alan, how's it going?
We're here today to get a bit of inside knowledge to training, coaching, all things cyclists should do over winter. So it'd be really good to hear your insight. Obviously, you're a former professional cyclist at a very high level. It's really just trying to tease out the snippets that us mere mortals should or could do over winter. So we'll just go straight into it. So first question is, how do you train over winter? What would your recommendations be?
You want to get as much hours as you can that fits around your work life, your family life, everything else you have going on, because that is then sustainable, okay? If you're rushing home from work, not eating anything, jumping on your turbo for 2 hours, and then just, having a cup of tea, bowl of cereal and going to bed, getting up the next day, doing the same again, after a week or so, you're going to burn out. That's not going to be sustainable. So you can't build any progression in there. And eventually you're going to fall off the wagon. After a while, motivation runs out. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits, as we would say. So it's all dependent on the individual's lifestyle. Okay, so you want to get the most amount of volume as you can that is realistically attainable based on your lifestyle. That's how I would answer that question. To me, there's no substitute for volume.
Mm-hmm. So say just for sake, somebody has 7 to 10 hours a week. I mean, what would that sort of split look like? If you're giving people advice.
Well, a good one to go off, and a lot of people would have heard of probably, is the 80-20 rule. Okay, which is a rule which divides the intensity of your training. So 80% should be easy, at an effort that you could hold a conversation at. Like that we wouldn't be struggling to have this conversation, if you know what I mean. If we were on the bike riding together, we should still be able to chat as we're chatting now. Maybe the odd breath pause in between, and then, go again. But that should be the level. So 80% of your time should be spent in around that zone 1, zone 2, and then 20% at the higher intensity, so zone 4, zone 5, then right up sort of your efforts where you shouldn't really be able to hold a conversation. Yeah,
and then in 20% then, what should that split look like if you're doing sort of 80% of your time easy and you're doing 20%? What would a 20% sort of look like? Is it big efforts? Is it short efforts, multiple of them? Or is it a sort of more sort of threshold type interval, or is it a mix of those things?
Well, it totally depends. If I was given like a total beginner a normal training plan, then I would be advising them to work off a standard periodized approach. So you start off your 20%, your intensity would be zone 3, zone 4, that sort of tempo-y sweet spot. And as I said before, it must be progressive, okay? So you start off maybe one of your sessions, say for example, is 1 hour with 4 by 5 minutes at zone 3, okay? So then the next session or the next week, it's 4 by 6 minutes. And then 4 by 8 minutes, okay, at the same intensity. And then the following week, we lift the intensity a bit. So you're up into zone 4, zone 5 now, you know what I mean? And do the same again then. So you progress on that. As I was saying, all training must be progressive. So as I say, if you were a total beginner and I was giving you a plan, it would probably be a standard periodized plan like that, where you're building the intensity and the volume, okay, as we go. You don't want to just jump straight into max efforts if you don't already have a decent aerobic base there.
Okay. How long should that periodization be from, say, now we're sort of into December, it's probably going to be midpoint of December into January, February. How long in weeks should that be, and what sort of structure would you have for that period? Is that 6 weeks, 10 weeks? What should that sort of generally look like? And if there's a training camp in there as well, where should that slot in?
Yeah, a good structure would be like a 12-week plan. So you're 3 months, and typically you want to have 3 weeks on, 1 week off. When I say a week off, it's not you just totally don't stop training. You know, you just lower the volume, lower the intensity slightly from the previous week or two, and then you go again. So 3-week progressive, easier week, 3-week progressive. So you're sort of climbing the stairs. You're progressively increasing both in volume and intensity over those 12 weeks. And that's a standard, you know, periodized plan as such. So you start off, your first month would be quite low intensity, even looking more towards, as we were talking about the percentages earlier, that 80-20, you might be looking more so 90-10 in the first 3 weeks. Then sort of next 3 weeks, 80-20, and then the last 70-30, if you know what I mean. So you're bringing a lot more, a wee bit more high intensity, harder efforts then as towards the last block, and that should sharpen you up. That should build a nice solid base of aerobic capacity. You have a good foundation there where you can then start to increase your intensity and then sharpen the VO2 max towards the end, where you should hit the race season then, or your end goal, whatever that may be, in pretty good shape, you know.
Yeah, so that's probably a good time. And then if you're sort of starting that December time at some point, that 3-month periodization would get you kind of into just coming into spring. Yeah, and then exactly. Before the race season and stuff. Yeah, okay. So we'll include that then just in our video, just sort of give people a general idea as the sort of training plan that they should follow. We'll just do it based on a 10-hour kind of training week. Because I think most people can kind of get free sort of that sort of 7 to 10 hour window.
Yeah, no problem.
After years and years of training, you kind of come around to it. But burnout. So how do you know when somebody is starting to get the signs of burnout? What sort of things would they feel or would they look for?
Well, it's very common, first of all, and I find that with a lot of athletes that I look after, I'm very, very often telling them all to slow down and do less, because they're highly motivated. That's why they come after, they come looking at a coach, think, right, I'm highly motivated here, I want to get stuck in, and all of a sudden they do the absolute maximum they can for a week or two, and then find a plateau, because that's not sustainable. You can't progress, so your system, your body adapts to that level, and then you start to drop off. Why would your system adapt to if you're already at your maximum, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why it must be progressive. And once you get to that stage where you're maxed out, you'll start to find symptoms like your heart rate will be continuously lower when you're training. So when you're riding steady, your training heart rate should be low, which you think is a sign of fitness, but actually it's a sign of fatigue. So resting heart rate will be up, but training heart rate will be low. Okay, so you'll get nowhere near your max heart rate or potential max heart rate. You'll find no matter how hard you go in training, you won't get near those heart rates. Other symptoms, signs to look out for would be sleep. Okay, so you'll find that you're very restless. You're tossing and turning all night, even though you're very tired. You don't ever get into much of a deep sleep. That's another symptom. Also appetite, you tend to lose your appetite. So all those wee things, becoming very irritable as well, and easily stressed, agitated. Those are all signs, symptoms of someone who's overtraining and burnout. And a lot of people don't take into consideration the load that psychological stress has on the body. Okay, so not just physical stress. Yes, they do their training and they're working hard, they're training hard. But if they have a really hard day at work, or there's something going on at home, they have a family member who's ill, maybe they're constantly worried about, thinking about, that has a massive impact on your physical levels. Okay, so people don't take that into account, and that's a reason why a lot of people hit burnout, or get to that level of exhaustion, plateau, aren't seeing any progress in their training, and they don't understand why.
I think for anybody that cycles or has cycled consistently in the past, you're saying those things, and in my head I'm already visualizing myself having done and gone through all those things at some point in the past. For me, probably wrongly, what I would have done was just take like an extra rest day. So if you're getting that, you've done a week of training and you get a bit fatigued, burnt out in the weekend, you're starting to feel it creep in, I would just take a Monday off, for example. So I would always have Friday usually as a rest day, but I'd maybe take one day off. Is that bad, or what is the recommended recovery from that, so you can start to get in that periodization? Is it 1 day? Is it 3 days, 5 days? Because I think that's quite an important thing for a lot of cyclists, where I'm sure we've all experienced burnout. What is the modern science today for getting on that phase again?
Unfortunately, there's no sort of go-to protocol for getting over burnout. And a lot of things can bring it on, as I say, not just overtraining, but it could be like psychological stress. It could be that you've got ill, like it could be viral induced or whatever. Like I actually suffered from that from long COVID. I had viral induced chronic fatigue syndrome. So there's no real protocol. It might take you 3 weeks, might take you 3 days, might take you 3 months. There's no said protocol, but you must rest. Okay, you must almost totally stop
I was
training.
going to say, when you rest, is that stopping training, or is that
Yeah.
just you do easy days, just spin the legs for 1 hour a day or something like that?
No, I would just totally stop training. If you're at that stage where you're like feeling burnt out, you've no motivation, as I say, you're losing your appetite, you're not sleeping well, you know that you're not really training as you should be, or at the level you're capable of. You're too tired, you know, you can't face doing any efforts, then you need to back right off. Just call it quits, stop until you feel that you're ready to go again. You feel that motivation coming back, you feel that you're able and capable of going out and actually riding hard, pushing your body hard. If you find that you're not able, or you're dreading that high intensity session all the time, you couldn't face it, then it's more than likely you're either at that summit, or you're very close to that summit where you're nearly overtraining. So, you know, you really just need to back off.
You said all the things that nobody wants to do.
Exactly.
It's like nobody ever wants to do that.
Everyone forgets that training makes you worse, okay? Without the adequate recovery, you're getting less fit. You're causing your body damage. That's the whole purpose of training. We're trying to force adaptation. So to force adaptation, we need to stress the body. We need to stress this, whatever the system is, the metabolic system, the cardiovascular system, the muscular system, whatever it is. And without adequate recovery, that's just getting worse and worse and worse. You're just causing more and more and more damage. So, for example, if you're training and keep chipping away but aren't recovering, you might as well not be training. You'd actually be doing yourself a lot better, and you'd be a lot fitter, healthier and stronger if you just totally stop training. Okay, because without adequate recovery, you're just getting worse. Yeah. So people let the psychological, they let the voice in their head tell them, I haven't trained in 2 days, I need to get out training, I'm losing fitness. And that tends to continue to dig the hole deeper and deeper, instead of forgetting about what's going on in their head and actually listening to their body.
Yeah, interesting. You were saying there about recovery as well. So obviously, what would you say is good or optimum recovery? So obviously it's all of your time off the bike, and then potentially sleep and your sort of quality of sleep and that. So again, if you're somebody who's training 10 hours a week, what would you say is the optimum recovery type? What should people be doing off the bike after training?
Well, just take the average working person, for example, who works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Then most of their availability is at the weekend. So that's where you're going to load up and do a wee bit more training, because that's, you have that availability there. So you want to take advantage of that. So Monday through to Friday, then you're limited. So to prepare for the weekend and to get over for the weekend, I would take Monday and Friday as your rest days, train Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's a good structure to go to for the average person who works 9 to 5.
Yep. And then recovery outside of that. So are you saying like try not to do any exercise outside of cycling, sleep, etc.? Like what should that look like for most people? And how important are those things?
Well, they're vitally important, as I say. Like without adequate recovery, you will not get any better. You just won't. So it is crucial, but recovery has a very broad spectrum. You're looking at not just sleep, obviously, which is probably the number one, but you're also looking at nutrition, and then you consider like stretching and muscular therapy, like massage therapy, things like that. Okay, so it's a big picture. There's a lot goes into it. So even if you're maybe sleeping well, but you're not eating well on and off the bike, you're not getting enough protein in, you're not getting enough carbohydrates to fuel your session or to refuel after your sessions, then again, you're fighting a losing battle there. So you want to consider your sleep, your nutrition, sort of muscular therapy and massage therapy, stretching, ice baths, things like that off the bike. And as you said there, you don't want to totally do nothing. You were saying like do no activity. Like I would advise some people to do some sort of light strength and conditioning exercises, a wee bit of cross training on the days that they're not training on the bike, if they're a cyclist or if they're a runner. Some gym work, it's putting a stressor on your musculoskeletal system more than your cardiovascular system. So it's giving your cardiovascular system a rest, but you're stressing the body elsewhere. So if you get that balance right, you should be able to sustain that.
Yeah, okay. What I used to do in the past was, and I don't know if this is still quite accurate or it was just my methodology, which was during the day you burn 2,000 calories naturally, so that's just you moving about, doing things, walking the dogs, etc. 2,000 calories. And every time I did a bike session, I would just try and fuel the bike session. So obviously it's always quite rough. So if you're running, a hard session, you're doing 500 to 700 calories an hour. If you use calories as the sort of figure, I would try and fuel mostly on the bike for that. And if I couldn't fuel on the bike, I would add sort of extra food, into your dinner at night time or something, or have another bar or something like late on night. Is that good logic, or is that something that's would you recommend that something like that as well, or is that not where the science is today?
A lot of people, when they start cycling, they want to lose weight, so they start
deficit.
Going into a calorie deficit, which is the only way to lose weight, is being a calorie deficit. So if your aim is performance, it's not recommended that you're in a calorie deficit.
So if you want to gain strength, performance, you have to fuel the bike. Is that what it is?
Generally, weight loss and getting stronger or performance goals don't tend to go hand in hand, because one, you have to restrict calories, and another one to gain muscle and grow and fuel those hard sessions, which you need to be doing to stress those systems. Then you need to be well fueled and eating a lot of calories as such. So you were right in the sense that anything you've lost, if your goal is performance, anything that you've lost through training, you need to get back on top of your average 2,000 calories a day, if you know what I mean. So if you're doing no exercise and you're burning 2,000 calories a day, then you go out for a bike session and you burn 1,000 calories, then that target for your day is 3,000 calories then. So just to break even, just to not be in deficit, to be in a balance, then you need to eat 3,000 calories that day.
Yeah. And then just obviously for that, I know we're talking around this subject generally, but obviously for people who cycled, who do want to lose weight, that's the magic ratio, isn't it? Where you're still eating your calories to fuel during the day. And if you want to lose weight, you're cycling, but you're maybe just under fueling ever so slightly, sort of that 200-300 calories or so on. And then you will strip back scientifically, shouldn't you? You just start to lose weight.
Yeah, as I say, it's a hard one to balance. It's either you tend to often have to choose weight loss or performance. So if you do want to do both, or try to do both, like lose a wee bit of weight but still be training hard and getting stronger, then you want to do all your calorie cutting away from the bike, away from your sessions, your training sessions. So on your training sessions, you need to fuel well before, during and after, and then throughout the rest of the day cut back on your calories a wee bit.
Okay.
And again, it must be sustainable, okay? So you can't all of a sudden, be cutting 600, 700, 800 calories a day and think like, I'll do this for 2 weeks, highly motivated and all. No, you'll crack, you'll fall off the bandwagon, and then you'll actually put on more as a result, this the further down the line, you go in this cycle. So
we've all been there where you do that, and then you spend the rest of the day with your head in the fridge.
Exactly.
Can't walk past it without getting yogurts and
a lot of people would skip breakfast, eat a late lunch, and then after work try and go straight onto the bike and do a hard session, and then all evening they're just fighting that temptation just to get into the biscuit tin, and might have 15-20 biscuits, and that's the equivalent of eating a 3-course meal in terms of calories. So it's just totally defeated the purpose.
I thought it was recent news, but you're telling me otherwise. Greg LeMond came out last week, I think, or in the last sort of several days, and the whole article was about how pro riders are trying to strip muscle back because they want the highest part of weight ratio possible. So to be a pro today, you have to be 60 kilos, 65 kilos, where LeMond was sort of saying he was 10 kilos heavier. I think it was about 10 kilos heavier. And he just pretty much said he couldn't compete with the riders today. So this is one of the most successful riders ever amongst that sort of group. And he was saying that a lot of pros are taking sleeping tablets just to get over hunger pains at nighttime, which is just, to me, it's just madness. I think you're probably doing your body a lot of damage by doing things like that. What's your view on that? I know you were saying like that's been going around for quite a long time.
Yeah, to be honest, from my point of view, and from just retiring from the sport there recently, within the last couple of years, it's almost came back full circle again. So he's exactly right, but to me that was more the Chris Froome, Bradley Wiggins era. Most people would know those guys, where they are so lean that they almost look ill. Back in their day, it was very much just be as light as possible. If you want to win the tour, if you want to be a good professional or a good GC rider, then you strip back and you do whatever you can to lose muscle, shed muscle. And a lot of guys were resorting to all sorts of drastic measures to do so. As you say, taking sleeping tablets and just like trying to skip dinner and go straight to bed and try and sleep it off and wake up the next morning. And now I think science has sort of caught up and realised that that was so unhealthy, and a lot of those guys are suffering as a consequence of all that. So as I say, the modern riders, Remco, Pogačar, Van Aert, they're a wee bit heavier now. They realise the importance of fueling, nutrition, proper sleep, all of that stuff. So they do everything off the bike far, far better now than they would have before. And if you want to be, like, for example, a good junior, a world-class junior coming through, the watts that you have to put out now are huge, and you can't do that without decent muscle mass. Okay, so lots of them are in the gym now, lots of them are a lot stronger. You know, they'll be up into the 75 kilos, you know, rather than 60 than they were before, than they were previously, because at 60 kilos it's just impossible to put out the numbers that these guys, some of these guys are doing now. You just can't match that, okay? So to me, it's come a wee bit full circle again.
That's it for our winter training video. Hopefully you got some insight into how to train and recover properly from a professional cyclist. Make sure to check out Matty's 12-week training program. We'll leave a link in the description below. But for now, thank you very much for watching this video. If you'd like us to cover any more topics in the future, please let us know in the comment section.